Hi everyone, I was looking through the results from this week and it looked like some people were having trouble completing the square. So I just wanted to make a quick video on completing the square for you. Okay, so specifically with hyperbolas and ellipses and circles, we have two sets of squares. So if you look, we have an x squared and a y squared. And so the first thing we're going to do is try and separate our variables. So I'm going to put all the x's together. So here I have x squared minus 30x, and then I have a minus 25y squared minus 150y, and then at last I have a minus 25, and that 25 is not a variable, so I'm going to move it to the other side. So I'm going to add 25 to both sides. Okay, so now I have to complete both of these squares. For the x squared, it's nice because we have a number 1. So in order to finish this square, we need to take that negative 30, divide by 2, and square it. So that will give us 225. And whatever you add to one side, you also have to add to the other side. Now for the y's, it's a little bit more complicated, right? Because of this negative 25 here, we have to factor out first. So this y portion is actually negative 25 times y squared plus 6y. Okay, and the square that we're trying to complete is now y squared plus 6y. So I'm taking that 6, divide by 2, and square it, which means I need to add 9. The trick is that when you add 9, you're adding 9 inside the parentheses. So the number that you put on the other side has to be 9 times that negative 25 from out of the parentheses. Okay. And now we get to rewrite everything. So x squared minus 30x is going to be x minus 15 squared. Right, those first three terms. Remember, we completed the square. And the inside of this parentheses right here tells you what your number is going to be. Right? So right there, this is a negative 15 that is squared. And on this one, we have 3 squared, right? So negative 15 or minus 15, and then a positive 3. So we minus the 25s on the outside, and then y positive 3, so plus 3. And then we have to add up all of this side. So 9 times negative 25 is negative 225, so we'll cancel exactly with that one. So we're just left with 25. Now, in order to get the form of a hyperbola, we do need to divide by 25 as well. Okay, so my last step is to divide all three terms by 25. So now I have x minus 15 squared over 25 minus y plus 3 squared. And then the 25s will cancel, so it's just over 1 equals 1. And that's the standard form for a hyperbola. Okay. The questions normally also ask us to find all the things, and so we're going to go through that real quickly. So remember that for your center, it's always, x comma y. So our x value, if you were to solve this, would be 15. Our y would be negative 3. So I have the center, the center is positive 15, negative 3. Okay. This particular hyperbola, if you go back to it, is also in the x direction, which means we're going to change the x coordinate. So for the vertices, we had a 25 under our x squared term, which means that we need to change x by 5 in each direction, right? Because we're taking the square root of that. So I have 15 plus 5, comma, negative 3. And 15 minus 5, comma, negative 3. Okay, so that gives us 20, negative 3, and 10, negative 3. So those are our two vertices. Foci, whatever sign you see in the middle, so in this case it's a minus sign, we're going to do the opposite, so we're going to add. So for foci, the very first thing we need to do is find c squared. So in this case, we said we're going to be adding. So we're adding 25 plus 1, which is 26, which means that our c value itself will be the square root of 26, right? Because we're going to take a square root from both sides. Okay, and it's a distance. So you're going both positive and negative. And again, our graph is going in the x direction, so we're adding them to the x coordinate. So for the focus points, we are doing 15 plus the square root of 26, comma, negative 3, and 15 minus the square root of 26, comma, negative 3. Now that is all the way simplified because the square root of 26 cannot be simplified farther. Okay. We have two more things left. We have our asymptotes and our graph. I'm going to go over the graph next because it's a little bit easier. So, oops. Let's draw a graph. And for my x's, because they're so large, I'm going to go by 5s. Let's see. So we have 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. And the y's are kind of small. I'm going to stick to 1s. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so it won't quite be proportional, but it should work. I'm also going to be doing the negatives. Okay, so I'm going to plot first our center point, which we said was 15, negative 3. So 15, negative 3. And we had a 25 under the x coordinate. So I'm just going to show you that again. 25 under the x, which means go 5 in each x direction. We have a 1 under the y, so 1 in each y direction. So I'm going to go 1 up, 5 over, draw a dot. 1 up, 5 over, draw a dot. And the same thing, 1 down, 5 over. And this gives us our reference rectangle. And what this helps us with is that our asymptotes go exactly through the corners. So exactly through the corners. Oh, sorry. We knew this was going in the x direction, which means our vertices should be in the x direction, so horizontal. And then the pattern for hyperbolas are to just approach the asymptotes. So I tend to draw it kind of 1/4 at a time. So starting at the vertex, approaching. Right, we're not going to have any of our graph inside this rectangle. Okay, and we do have to get closer to the asymptotes. So that's it for the graph. Draw a rectangle, make it approach it. Okay. In terms of equations, we can write the equations of those asymptotes. By looking at the center point, so y plus 3 and x minus 15. So I'm going to have y plus 3 and x minus 15. And I'm using the point slope formula. So our slope, we said that the y was 1, okay, and the x was a change of 5 in each direction. And then we're also going to have a negative 1/5, right, because we're going in both directions, positive and negative. Okay, and our last step here would just be to write it in slope-intercept form. So I'm going to do that. So I have 1/5 x minus 3. So I get y equals 1/5 x minus 6. And here I have a negative 1/5 x plus 3 is y plus 3. Your 3's will cancel. So you're left with y equals negative 1/5 x. Okay, and that's it. That's the entire hyperbola, all the pieces of it. If you have questions, please feel free to contact me. Bye.